You know, it's a little early in the video for me to be stepping up on my soapbox, but this is incredibly important and I really want to share this with you. In fact, let me make sure that everybody can hear me. Listen, if you're not reading young adult books, you are missing out on some seriously great Star Wars stories. In fact, they're some of the best stories in all of canon. Off my soapbox now, and before we go any further in this video, allow me to introduce myself. My name is Emma Park, I'm a content creator here at Youtini, and I am extremely passionate about young adult books, if you couldn't tell already. I hope everybody out there is passionate about them as well. If you're not, maybe this video will change your mind. This video is going to be a breakdown of the top 10 young adult books in all of canon. But before we dive into that list, I want to talk about the reasons people don't read young adult books and the misconceptions that are behind that. The two main reasons I notice when people want to completely disregard YA books is that number one, they're for kids. How can the story be that good? And number two, the story is about teenagers. How can I relate to that? Well, these two misconceptions could not be more wrong, and I'm going to show you why. One of the core reasons that these misconceptions are wrong is because of the fact that just because a book is aimed toward a younger audience does not automatically mean that it has a horrible story. In fact, that's the farthest thing from the truth. Lost Stars, which is a YA book, and we'll be talking about it later, is one of the highest ranked books on all of Youtini.com. I think that says something about the story. A useful tool in combating these misconceptions is to define YA as a whole. It's a genre, not a category, and that's important to keep in mind. A YA book can be defined as a book that stars at least one teenage character. That's it. It doesn't preclude adults from enjoying the stories, and it doesn't automatically make the stories terrible. I mean, look at A New Hope. Luke was a teenager, The Force Awakens, Rey was a teenager, and adults enjoy those movies. So why can't adults enjoy YA books as well? My point is that adults really can. YA books are some of my most favorite books in all of Star Wars. Look at Lost Stars, that's generally people's favorite books or in their top 5. So just remember that if you're an adult, you can love YA books as well. So now that I've convinced you that YA books have really good stories that aren't just for kids, I want to talk about the top 10 young adult books in canon. Starting out at number 10 is Force Collector by Kevin Shinnick, which received an official Youtini score of a 7.3. This book was released in November of 2019 and takes place in 32 ABY, or after the Battle of Yavin. It follows teens Car and Maisie on their adventures throughout the galaxy. Car has a Force ability in which he can touch an object and he can see through the Force what happened with or to that object. Car's goal for their adventures is to learn more about the Jedi, while Maisie's goal for their adventures is to just go on an adventure and rebel against her parents. This is a fun read that has a great way of helping us reminisce on the saga through new eyes. Next up at number 9 is Ahsoka by E.K. Johnston, which received an official Youtini score of a 7.5. This book was released in October of 2016 and takes place in 18 BBY, or before the Battle of Yavin. This book takes place directly after Order 66, and it shows Ahsoka trying to hide from Imperials. She, like other Jedi such as Cal Kestis, try to hide their true identity as a Jedi by working normal jobs as normal citizens. As like what always seems to occur, she gets into a little bit of trouble. This book does a great job of filling in the gaps between the Ahsoka we see in Clone Wars with the Ahsoka that we see in Rebels. Moving on to number 8 is Queen's Shadow by E.K. Johnston, which received an official Youtini score of a 7.5. It was released in March of 2019 and takes place in 28 BBY. We meet back up with Padme Amidala just after her reign as queen ends, but before her term as senator begins. She's trying to find her place in the galaxy after being the most powerful person on her planet of Naboo, and as you can imagine, that's a very tough transition. The inspiration for Padme to become senator came from this period of time shown in the book, in which she's trying to figure out how to still make an impact on the galaxy while not being queen, and she figures that becoming a senator would be the way to do this. Overall, this book does a fantastic job of developing Padme's character between episodes 1 and 2. Next up at number 7 is Poe Dameron Freefall by Alex Segura, which received an official Youtini score of a 7.8. It was released in August of 2020 and takes place in 18 ABY. The premise of this book is really simple, yet quite exciting. Poe Dameron is a bored teen on his homeworld of Yavin 4, and we get to see his transition from farmer to spice runner. The main draw for this book is that it fills in the blanks that were left from the Rise of Skywalker, and it answers the questions of how Poe Dameron met Zori Bliss and how Poe became a spice runner. And the book has Babu Frick in it. Do I need to say anything else? Moving on to number 6 is Galaxy's Edge, A Crash of Fate by Zoraida Cordova, which received an official Youtini score of a 7.9. This book was released in August of 2019 and takes place in 35 ABY. As the title suggests, this takes place on Galaxy's Edge, or better known as the planet of Batuu, and it focuses on teens Jules and Izzy. They were childhood friends who got separated but are now reunited as teens. They go on adventures together and they learn how to love each other in a way that's different than just being friends. A Crash of Fate tells a great romance story in the backdrop of Batuu, which helps us learn more about the increasingly central planet. Before moving on to the next book in our list, I want to let you know that links to all of the books mentioned in today's video are in the description below, as well as a link to Audible where you can find these books in audiobook format. If you've never tried Audible before, you can use our link for a free trial, and your first book is completely free on us. Alright, now back to the list. Next up at number 5 is Rebel Rising by Beth Revis, which received an official Youtini score of an 8.4. This book was released in May of 2017 and takes place between 13 and 0 BBY. There's a theme in the EU in which books from the Rogue One Publishing Initiative are absolutely incredible, and Rebel Rising is no different. We get to see Jyn Erso growing up with Saw Gerrera. She goes on many adventures and experiences many life-changing events throughout the course of this book, and at the end, we meet up with the adult Jyn that we see in the movie. This is one of my personal favorite YA books because it gradually moves from the young and innocent Jyn to the cynical, desperate, hardened, and strong woman that we see in Rogue One. Moving on to number 4 is Leia, Princess of Alderaan by the beloved Claudia Gray, which received an official Youtini score of an 8.9. This book was released in September of 2017 and takes place in 3 BBY. As the title suggests, the premise of this book is centered around Leia Organa, who is a teenager at this time, and is at the age in which Alderaanian royalty have to take place in certain rites of passage. During these times, she grows to be the typical distant teen with her parents. In this book, Leia discovers some of the more secretive parts of her parents' lives, while simultaneously making some serious transformations in her own. As always, this Claudia Gray novel is wonderful, both in plot and in character development. Moving into the top 3 now is Most Wanted by Ray Carson, which received an official Youtini score of a 9.0. This book was released in May of 2018 and takes place in 13 BBY. This book is a prequel to Solo and follows teenage Han and Kira on some of their earliest adventures. We get a front row seat in seeing their relationship blossom into what we see in the movie. Additionally, the inner workings of the White Worms gang, as well as the rules of the streets of Corellia, are explored in great depth, filling in some blanks from Solo. Overall, this book has a great mix of action, romance, and explorative moments. Coming in at number 2 is Queen's Peril by E.K. Johnston, which received an official Youtini score of a 9.0. This book was released in June of 2020 and takes place in 32 BBY. Queen's Peril is a prequel to another book on this list, Queen's Shadow. We meet Padme on Election Day, right before she finds out that she's been elected as Queen of Naboo. We also get to discover how she meets her handmaidens and how they all planned for her reign to be as effective as possible. Getting to know the inner workings of Naboo politics, as well as being able to witness Padme's relationships grow with her handmaidens, is well worth the read. And at number 1, which is no surprise to anyone, is Lost Stars by Claudia Gray, which received an official Youtini score of a 9.7. This book was released in September of 2015 and takes place between 11 BBY and 5 ABY. If you've ever heard of Star Wars books at all, I'm positive that you've heard of Lost Stars. It's one of the most loved and one of the most respected books in all of Star Wars, Legends or canon. And this is for really good reason. It follows teens Sienna and Thane, who both grow up on the same planet but from very different backgrounds. What brings them together is their love of flying. They both join the Imperial Academy so that they can make a living out of their passion, but they end up taking different paths. I won't go any deeper into it in case you haven't read it yet, but if you haven't read it yet, first of all, why? And second of all, you should. But it's so worth going into it with as little spoilers as possible. It's safe to say that if you love anything about Star Wars, you'll absolutely love Lost Stars. That'll do it for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed our guide to the best YA books in Star Wars canon. But we want to know what you think. Are there any ratings that you disagree with? What would your ranking be? Let us know in the comments below. If you're looking to take a deeper dive into the books, make sure to check out The Living Force, the official podcast of Youtini, or catch the live show every Monday night at twitch.tv/Youtini_US. And we also have another live show now called Legends Look Back, which is about, you guessed it, Legends books. Visit us online at youtini.com for reading guides, timelines, and book profiles for every single story in the Star Wars galaxy. Also, if you'd like to help support Youtini more directly, we have a Patreon page at patreon.com/Youtini. Thank you all so much for watching. Go read some YA books. And as always, may the Force be with you.